Okay, what's up guys? Just a quick preface for this video. I filmed this video as a guest post for the team page at my gym at Team Spanaway, but I figured I would put it on my YouTube as well, just in case someone would want to learn from it and they don't follow that page. Just so you know why the address at the beginning is a little weird. Hello Team Spanaway. I'm doing another guest post this week. Someone asked me to talk about the differences between powerlifting and bodybuilding training. Or speaking more generally, what are the differences between training for strength and training for size? Just a synonym for training for size, if you're not aware, is hypertrophy training. So if I slip up and say that, that's what I mean. It's just a slightly more scientific term for it. So you're going to be looking at a couple of core differences between the two. We know that the idea of progressive overload applies to both. We need to do more with time if we want to drive change in the body. We have to present a bigger and bigger stimulus if we want to see more and more adaptation. Because if you present the same stimulus over and over, your body isn't likely to have any new adaptations. So that applies to both. But how we're doing that looks a little bit different depending on our goals. So that leads me to the first core difference, which is going to be the rep ranges. If you are a bodybuilder, right, you are going to be usually training in the 5 reps or higher range, and that can extend all the way up to 30. I think past 30 you're looking at you may as well just slap a little bit more weight on there at that point so you don't have to count so high. But most of the science nowadays has pointed to the idea that above 5 or so reps, we seem to get the same amount of growth as long as we're in a reasonable proximity of failure. So, let's call it within 3 reps of true mechanical failure, regardless of whether you're doing a set of 6 or a set of 30, we seem to see a pretty similar amount of growth. This kind of goes against the old adage, low reps, heavy weights for size. Couldn't be further from the truth. That is the only rep range that isn't going to really maximize our growth. So if you're a bodybuilder, you're training in that 6 or higher range 99% of the time. There's an argument that can be made potentially for that 1 to 5 rep range to help you get stronger, but you can improve your strength in all of those rep ranges. So, if our goal is to get bigger and bigger muscles, what we're going to do is we're going to improve our strength in a variety of rep ranges. So, you have your 6 to 8 rep sets, your 8 to 12 rep sets, your 15 rep sets, and maybe even a 30 rep set. The reason that we want to get stronger across a variety of these rep ranges is there seem to be separate drivers of hypertrophy. Right, we have mechanical tension, right? The micro tears in the muscle. We've all heard about that, and that can be effectively done in any of these ranges. But it tends to be a little bit easier to progressively overload the lower reps in that regard. Put more and more weight on the bar. But we also know that metabolite buildup in our muscles also seems to be an independent driver of hypertrophy. So doing some metabolite training with these high rep sets and improving our strength in those sets is also worthwhile. So, you're looking at that 5 to 30 rep range for bodybuilding, whereas for powerlifting, you're going to say, okay, so that means powerlifters will be 5 reps and below. But a bigger muscle has the potential to be a stronger muscle, right? So the majority of powerlifters at some point in their training program are going to be doing hypertrophy training, whether it is blocked out periods of time during a month-to-month schedule, or it's a certain day of the week they focus on hypertrophy. At some point, most powerlifting programs are going to have you working in that 6+ rep range. The difference is that you're not always there. So if you're a powerlifter, if you're a strongman, or if you're just interested in strength, you're going to block out periods of time where, okay, I am going to be working on hypertrophy on the motions that I want to get good at, so I grow the relevant musculature, and then I'm going to work in that 5 and lower rep range, and I'm more or less I've built all this new muscle, and now I'm going to train it to be stronger. I'm going to train my central nervous system to more effectively recruit that muscle, and that could be anywhere from like 4 to 6 reps is the traditional true strength phase range. And then you also have the 1 to 3 rep sets, which are more of a peaking setting, which is getting really good at expressing the level of strength you're at. So both skill and the efficiency of your central nervous system are our primary goals in that, and you're going to break that up. It could be through the week if you do a daily undulating periodization scheme, or it could be from I've got 4 weeks of hypertrophy, I've got 4 weeks of strength, and then I've got 3 weeks of peaking. Either way is totally valid. So that's going to be, you're going to be training a variety of rep ranges, but generally speaking, you're not going to go quite as high as someone who's training purely for bodybuilding will, because metabolite techniques might not always be the best use of your training economy. you might want to just get a little bit more overlap between the strength and the hypertrophy stimulus if you're going to push yourself to another difficult set. The second thing, that brings me to the second thing that we're going to talk about, and that is the number of sets you're doing. Someone who's training for just muscle size, hypertrophy, is going to be doing quite a few sets. They're going to be training up at their maximum recoverable volume. That means they're going to be aiming roughly for the number of sets for each body part that they're able to recover from on a week-to-week basis. So, that's going to look very different depending on how strong you are, how experienced you are. There's a lot of things that are going to change the amount of volume that you can recover from. So that could be anywhere from 6 sets of quads a week to 20 sets of quads a week. Usually smaller, weaker people are going to be able to do more because each individual set is less taxing on the body, so they're going to need to do more work sets. But you're going to work up your way up, and one of the best ways to find it is just to kind of push total limits. You say, okay, I might have overdid it that week a little bit, I'll dial it back. I know for myself to grow, I need to do 12 to 14 working sets of quads a week, right? And a bodybuilder will stay up around that maximum recoverable volume for the majority of the year unless they take some time to just truly rest. Whereas a powerlifter or someone partaking in strength training will be up around that maximum recoverable volume only for their hypertrophy phases or only for their hypertrophy days. They're going to be quite a bit lower in the number of sets they're performing on their strength and their peaking phases. Strength phases, you want to be doing just enough to drive that strength adaptation and not doing a whole lot more, because then you're just potentially jacking up your injury risk or drilling bad technique at that point. And during the peaking phase, we're going to be doing very, very little work because we want to be reducing the amount of fatigue so that we're getting ready to express the amount of strength that we have built. And that brings me to the final difference between the two that I'm going to talk about, which is exercise selection. There's going to be a lot of overlap between strength training exercises and hypertrophy exercises. There's meat and potato exercises that work very well for both, but there's going to be some core differences. Something like a low bar squat or a sumo deadlift for powerlifting might not be the best use of training economy if muscular size is our goal. Because we're basically splitting a worse stimulus between more muscle groups from a hypertrophy standpoint, but from a strength standpoint, we're using more muscles to move as much weight as we can. So that's a big difference. Is there's some exercises that aren't always just going to be a good investment for training for size, and they're going to be very effective for building and expressing strength. But there are some that overlap. If you're someone who benches without a very large arch, that is going to be both a great hypertrophy exercise and a great strength exercise. A high bar squat, for example, is a great strength training tool and a great hypertrophy tool. The reason that you're going to see a very big difference in legs, right? So if you were strength training, increasing your squat is generally the metric by which we all measure leg strength. It's going to have a high level of carryover with anything else that involves strong legs. Thus, increasing your squat is the primary goal of leg training for strength, right? But if growing my legs as much as I can is my primary goal, a back squat might not be the best option, or even a front squat, because there's a good chance I'm limited by the strength of my core and my low back before my legs reach mechanical failure, which means I'm leaving a little bit of stimulus on the table for my legs. And that's where a leg press, a belt squat as we have at Spanaway, or a hack squat might be a more appropriate squatting pattern, because we can take our joint through a full range of motion under load, we can progress it with time, and we know that the target muscle is the limiting factor. So that's going to be the big difference. Is for bodybuilding, we want to pick these motions that we know we can overload. They lend themselves to progressing, and you could see yourself down the line doing a lot of weight. They're going to take your joint through a full range of motion, and then we know that the limiting factor is the muscle that we want to target. Whereas in strength training, usually instead of training muscles, we're training motions. So rather than thinking, quads, we're thinking, knee extension or hip extension instead of glutes or hamstrings. So that's going to look very different. You say, my squat, I really seem to struggle with, I guess we'll use knee extension as an example. You have reason to believe that you have weak quads, you're getting buried in the hole, even though you're keeping reasonable tightness and you're bracing well. You're like, okay, I may have weak knee extensors. We're going to do a different kind of squat that emphasizes the knee extensors more, because that's going to have more direct carryover to our low bar squat, because it looks more like our low bar squat. It's kind of the principle of specificity, just dialed back slightly. Or even a belt squat. We know that pattern looks more like our squat,
and we know that the limiting factor is going to be our knee extensors, but it's not as far removed as, say, a hack squat or a leg extension. So I hope this is helpful. Please let me know if you have anything you want me to touch on next week. Thank you for having me.